All right, welcome to day 2 of Code Wave. Woo, ride the Code Wave. So today we're going to go deeper into front-end web design with CSS. We're going to review day 1. Well, basically everything from this point on will be a review of day 1, essentially, because you just can't do web design without HTML. So let's start with a new project. My first project, maybe another one. I'm gonna make a new project. Why not? So I'm gonna go into my GitHub folder, and what I'm gonna do is make a new folder. And instead of calling it like my second project, I'm just gonna call it, what do we call it? MLB, Major League Baseball. Is it just an MLB?
It's MLB.
Okay. Why not MLBB, Major League Baseball? Alright, so then I'm going to import that into Atom by clicking File, Add Project folder, and then navigating to where that is, not that GitHub folder, it's on my desktop. Do not make another GitHub folder, ever. You should only have one, okay? People make a GitHub folder on their desktop and then another one in their documents and another one on their home directory. I'm like, oh, so where's your file? Oh, my GitHub folder. Where's the GitHub folder? Oh, it's on the desktop and the documents and here and there. No, you will get so confused. Have one central home for all of your code and keep it there. The desktop is a great place to start because you can't lose it. It's always going to be there. So don't make multiple GitHub folders. And the reason why we call it GitHub is because every project that you make is really going to be its own GitHub project. You don't know what GitHub is yet, but just know that it's a place to host your projects. So let's say you're working on a website and then you you go to sleep and you wake up and your computer crashes. Well, if you saved it on GitHub, then all's well. Or let's say you're working on some code and your project is working perfectly and then later on you break it. Well, with GitHub, you can go back to previous versions of your code that you saved. So you can't really break anything because it saves versions along the way. GitHub is mainly a version control management system. So for every few lines of code you write or everything you create, like say you make a nav bar, then you save it to GitHub. You create a footer or whatever, then you save. So desktop, GitHub, you could just open up the GitHub folder itself, and then I'll remove that. And that way I have my first project and our new awesome Major League Baseball World Finals. All right, so I'm going to make a new file and I'm going to call it homepage. Who knows what the homepage is called in web design? Anyone heard of index.html? Yeah, a little bit. See some nods. Okay, so when you go to google.com, what's the first thing you see? The homepage, right? Google, search bar, Google search, I'm feeling lucky, right? What about when you go to, I don't know, what other iconic home sites are there? I don't know. Anywhere else. So the home page is the index.html. So I'm going to call this index.html because if I have new files, say I have players.html, and on that page I have a list of all the players on the teams and stuff, and then I have another one, new file, teams.html. Now when I create a new file, I right-click the folder and go to new file. Oh, go to file and then add project folder. Yeah. So I definitely encourage you guys to play around with Atom, get comfortable with it, see what all this stuff does, new window, new file, open, what's the difference between open and add project folder, all these different things. Like, you're going to be working Atom every single day for the next month. So definitely get comfortable with it. If there are other packages that I missed, go ahead and install them. If you want to change your theme, I highly recommend changing your theme. Why? Because you can customize it. All you have to do is go to Themes. If you go to Themes in the setting, then you can pick whatever theme you want. If you want to install a new theme, just hit Install, and then search for Themes, and then, I don't know, Batman. Batman theme? Hey, we got Batman color themes. So, change it around, see what you like. I'm not going to do Batman today. So, let's say you go to MLB.com, like say I own it right now. The first page that's going to be displayed is my index.html. So you should only have one. Do not make something like index2.html. There's really no point. You should only ever have one index, and then every other page should have a name, like players.html or teams.html, because you know exactly what is in that HTML file. All right, so in my index.html file, I'm going to bring up the boilerplate. Anyone remember off the top of their head what the boilerplate shortcut is? Exclamation point and then tab. Yep. Thank you, Adam. It's going to bring up all this other stuff. That's fine. You can leave it. You can delete it. Out of all this, which ones are required 100%? The head, HTML, body, and title. What about doc type? Yes, very important. Someone came up to me. They're like, "I don't know what's wrong with my website. It's not working. I've tried everything. The syntax is all right. It looks great, but they're missing the doc type HTML, and it did not work." So good thing for a little boilerplate. Whoop, it's 2 seconds, and we have it. So I'm going to call this MLB, or I'm going to make the title MLB. And what I'm going to do is make a, I'm going to make an H1 and say Major League Baseball. Just like that. So I want to see what this looks like. I'm going to find this on my computer. So I could go to my desktop, my GitHub folder, MLB, and double-click index.html. And there we go. We got Major League Baseball. It looks terrible. We have the default nasty Times New Roman font, but that's fine. We'll work with it. So what do we want on this baseball page? Maybe we want like what is it called? The World Finals? World Series, that's it. World Series. Boom. So Major League Baseball, World Series. Right. When you're doing web design, you really want to get the content out there, and then you style it. So right now, even though this looks terrible, I don't care. I'm just going to get everything on the page, like all my images, my nav bar, my footer, and everything. And then after, I'll worry about putting it where I want it. So you guys help me out. How should we do this? I'm thinking like a big old picture of like one team and then another versus another. Yeah, let's find some pictures. Oh, or we could find one image. I'm sure. MLB World Series. Hey. Is it Cubs versus Indians? That's terrible. Not quite what I want. Oh, yeah, something like this. I dig it. I'm into it. Let's snag this picture. Is Joe here? Okay. It was posted on Slack. All right, so I want this image, but this time instead of linking to it directly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to download it and save it into my Major League Baseball folder. So drag and drop, and that is a very long name, but I'm going to work with it. All right, so we have our image. Let's get the score. There we go. So 5-3. Let's assume that that's how it ended. I want that. Or is there a way to embed this? Yeah, I could screenshot it. Ooh. I don't know if we want to go that deep right now. What can we do? Huh? A table? We could make a table and do all this. A picture might be easier. And a link. No, we'll do a link and we'll just hard code the score for now. Let's see if we can embed it. Embed Major League Baseball World Series score. Maybe, maybe not. We could use something called an iframe. Oh, of course. We're using iframe. That could work. So I'm going to take this, and there is something called an iframe. We're getting deep already. Iframe. HTML iframe. Iframe stands for inline frame, which you can create a kind of like a portal, or like a little view to another website. And the way you use it is by simply using the iframe tab. So right below this, I'll do iframe, and then it asks for a source, and I'll just throw that in, and let's see what we get. Nothing. Do we need a height and a width? Let's just throw on a height and a width. What are these called again? The height, width, source, attributes. Awesome. In JavaScript, they're called properties. Yeah, that's just getting you guys ready for the future. All right, where is my iframe? Maybe you can't embed Google searches. Let me check it out. Refuse to display. Okay, that's cool. Then let's just get our image. We'll worry about the score later. And to input an image, it's just an img tag. And what could the source be if I want to link to this? Let's rename it to banner. I'm going to call that banner.jpg. So if I want to display this banner.jpg, then all I have to do is type in banner.jpg. The font matters, or the capitalization matters. So if this was a capital B, that wouldn't work. It has to be exactly as you see there. And by convention, every file should really be lowercase. The only reason why I have MLB capitalized is because it's my project name. And really, by convention, that's also lowercase on GitHub as well. Alright, so let's see what we have. Refresh it, and there we go. We got our nice banner across the page. Awesome. What else? Let's say we want a link to different teams or players. We'll do players. We'll have a button for players, and then a button for maybe teams, and that takes you to players. Yeah, we'll do teams, and then that will take you to players. So right now we're kind of building our website. We're making it very simple. So I'm going to insert a button with called teams. Let's see what that looks like. Here we have our little teams button. We'll style that in a bit. We'll make it bigger and below the image if we want. And then that is going to take us to our teams.html file. So who remembers the tag to make a link? A. Yes. The A with the href attribute. So I'm going to simply type in teams.html. Alright, let me break this up a little bit so you can see a little easier. There we go. So I have a button tag, and inside of that I have the anchor tag. So that way when you click on the button, then it'll take you to the Teams page. And real quickly, I'll make a teams.html that just says Teams. And that's it. Okay. So now we see that this is clickable, but there we go. And it takes us to our teams.html page. And then now there's no way to get back from there except by clicking the back button. Let's see what will happen real quick if I take the A tag and put it outside of the button. For instance, if I take this, move it out, and auto indent, then you see it's a little bit different. You don't have that underlining and it's not blue, right? So it's little subtle differences if you want to make the whole button a link instead of just making the text a link. So now if you click on Teams, then you see we get to the Teams page. Oh, that's a great question. So why is the button over there? Why isn't it down below, right? Like these are all down below. Well, I'll explain that. What if I start typing like, welcome to the World Series? Where do you think it'll go? Above it, to the left of it, below it, or after the image? So everything matters in what order you place it. So on line 11, so the way programming works is top to bottom, left to right. So Major League Baseball goes before World Series. And that's exactly what we see. Let me comment that out. So we see Major League Baseball and then World Series. And then after that, we see image. So here's our image, and then after that we see the button. But the button's over here. And why is that? Well, what if before the image I put this text? Whoa, like why is the text appearing before the image and not like before it and above it? Well, that's because images are inline elements. Very, very important to note. So the way you center an image in HTML is with text align center. What? Right? So there are only two types of elements. There are block elements and there are inline elements. Let me show you. Layout. Again, there are block and inline. Block elements are more rectangular, like they take up the whole width of the page. For instance, Major League Baseball is in an H1, which makes it a block element because there's a line break after it. And then same with H3, it's a block element. And let me show you. Here we go. So block elements like divs, you know what? It'll help if we add colors to it. So I'm going to add a background color to this Major League Baseball text up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some CSS. Don't worry too much about what I'm doing. We'll get into it later. And with CSS, the way it works is you specify 1, the target, 2, the property to change, and then 3, the value of the property you want to change it to. For instance, in the real world, let's say I wanted to paint a chair red, right? My target would be the chair, the property to change is the color, and the value is red, right? So the same thing with this. In this case, what is my target? Well, my target would be an H1 tag. The property to change is the background color, and the value is yellow. So real quickly, I'm going to comment those out. And when we insert CSS in this way with the style tags, again, the style tag is HTML. How do you know? Well, the angle braces, right? Opening tag, closing tag, and inside of that is all CSS. CSS has a different way to comment things than HTML. For instance, CSS uses the /*. Anything inside of that is a comment, whereas HTML, this is an HTML comment, and then anything inside of that is a comment. So all right, so my target is an H1, and then all that's left is syntax. So my target is H1, I use open and close parentheses, and inside of that, it's just property and then value, property, value, property, value. So the property is background color, and let's change it to pink. All right. So now if I refresh the page, you see the pink goes all the way across the page, right? Why? Because H1 tags or header tags are block elements. Div is the same exact thing. So let's say div, and I'll put that. I'll put both of those inside of a div, and watch, instead of targeting the H1, I target a div. Then now it's targeting everything that's inside of this div, the H1 and the H3. And it's setting both of their background colors to pink. Exactly. Absolutely right. Why? Because they're block elements. Yeah, think of them like Legos. So let me change the H2 tag or H3 tag, background color to yellow. And there you go. So they're just stacking on top of each other. If I have another div, like right below it, then there you go. So divs, H1s, H3s are block elements, whereas images are inline elements, and so is just random text. Paragraph tags are block elements. So let's change anything inside of a paragraph text. Background color to light blue. And there we go. So now that Welcome to World Series isn't on the left anymore because I put it inside of a paragraph tag. If you inspect it, I'm going to right click anywhere on the screen really, and then go to Elements, and then I can select this p tag. You can see, you can see that we have a p tag and it has like a buffer, and that buffer is called a margin. And you can see right here, this is the box model, which we'll get into later. And the box model has the content, which is the blue, the padding, which is the space between the border and the text. So if I wanted the blue to be bigger and the text to like have some space, or if I wanted to push the text a little bit to the right and not have it so close to the left, then that would be the padding. And then the border is, right now it has a 0 pixel border, and then the margin has a built-in margin, or the p tag has a built-in margin of 16. Again, don't worry if you don't understand all this 100%. We're going to go over it like a million times. Okay, so inline HTML block elements list. So block elements will stack like an H1 and H3 divs. They will stack on top of each other, and you won't have anything to the right of it like this. So the H3, before I put the pink background on, you might think the H3 is just this, right? Like it kind of makes sense for an H3 to end at the end of the text, right? Of whatever's in it. But no, the H3 is a block element, which means it goes all the way across the page. So if H3 is a block element and H1 is a block element, then they will just stack on top of each other. And you can't have, like if you want this World Series to the right of it, then you're going to use some, like a grid layout. And in inline elements, like buttons, images, just normal text, what they will do is instead move things kind of to the right. So in my code, I have hello there outside of any tag, and then an image tag, which is an inline element, and then an anchor tag, which is an inline element, and then a button, which is inline. If I add a whole bunch more buttons, then they're just going to go to the right instead of down, right? So that's really what inline and block means. Let me add a bunch of button times 4. Hi. 4. There we go. So I just made 4 buttons, and instead of going down with all the buttons, they're all in line. So that's all it does. And if you see, the text is in line with the bottom of the image, right? This is similar to how you would type in like Microsoft Word, right? You type some text, you put an image in, and then the image would be right at the bottom line with the text, and then same thing with all of these things. All right, questions? Inline and block, we're still going to go over them. They take a while to understand fully, to be honest, but you will understand them in due time. So, awesome. Great questions. Love them. All right. All right, so teams, I kind of want that maybe above the image. So, whoop. All right. No, what? Why does that happen? Well, because images are inline. So what I can do is just add a break tag there. And there you go. Now teams is above it. What is that? Don't know what that is. Oh well. Another way you can make a button is with a an input tag, input type of button. And notice that the input tag has no closing input tag. So the way you change the text on it is with the value attribute. There we go. And we get teams and teams. Oops. Forgot that I did that. So now we have two buttons that will do the exact same thing. How do I give this? Oh, same way. So I'm going to duplicate that. What? How do you do that? To duplicate is on a Mac, Command-Shift-D, D for duplicate. So if you want like a bunch of fun stuff. So refresh, and there you go. Why? What on earth is that? It's gonna bug me forever. What are you? Alright. So, two ways to create buttons. We'll call this players. Why not players? And that way we have two different buttons, and then we'll have each of them link to each other. So the home page will link to teams and players, and then the players will link to teams and the home page, and so on. So I use the anchor tag. So if I get rid of this input, there we go. We'll do a link. What else is there? Player, team, I don't know, path, or history. And let's say we have history.html. I'm going to make it, why not, new file, history.html. Oops, make the boilerplate, why not? And so what this is going to look like is just a simple link, like that, right? So what we're doing to make a button a link is we're just wrapping this anchor tag around the button. That's all we're doing. So by pattern matching, you notice that anything you type inside of the anchor tag is going to be that link, right? Like I could type like bananas. So I know that bananas will be the link that you see. And so here you see bananas. So if you replace that with a button or say an image, then you can make that image clickable. All I did was make a history.html. Okay, so great question. So it does that based on what file you're currently in. So right now, what file am I in? Index.html. Is index.html in the same directory as history.html? It is. If I make a new folder called, let's call it images, or img, why not? And if I have banner, and I put banner into images, or the img folder, will this display correctly? No, it won't. I will never trick you. If I'm shaking my head, then that's the right answer. I will never try and trick you. I will ask leading questions. You will know in your heart of hearts that like you know the right answer, and you're still not going to say it because you're shy and afraid, but you will be right. I guarantee you. Programming has to make sense. Otherwise, like there's no like point in doing it. So right now, from the file that I'm in, which is index.html, there is no banner.jpg. There's an IMG folder, there's history, index, players, teams, but there's no banner.jpg. So what can I do to say, hey, go into the images folder and then get banner.jpg? Exactly. You just direct it by saying, go in the IMG folder and then go to banner.jpg. So let me break that out, and then I'll make the alternate Cubs versus Indians. So refresh it, and here we get Cubs versus Indians because the link is broken. It can't find banner.jpg in the same directory that index.html is in. So if I want to go into that folder, all I have to do is say, hey, go into IMG and then get banner.jpg. No, it could be anywhere. Like, let's say in my history, I want an image. Then from there, where would I go? Exactly, in the IMG, and then banner.html, and that's it. So now when I click on, yeah, where'd it go? All right, let's have a bit more fun with this. So this is probably the most complicated thing that you'll learn all day, to be honest. This whole like connecting things. Once you get it, then you're set. But really, it's the most complicated thing you'll learn today. So pay attention for like the next 10 minutes, and then we could all get it. All right. So right now, this file right here is my index.html file. And I have an image in my IMG folder called banner.jpg. Now, let's say I get another image. That one. Get the one that's trademarked. Plop that in there. Awesome. All right. Now, what if I wanted to add that? Cubs. All right. What if I wanted to add a picture of the Cubs right here? What would I do first? Exactly, just an image tag. And then what's my source? So img/cubs.jpg. If it was JPEG, no dice. It doesn't work. There's nothing called cubs.jpeg. So pay attention to that. All right, and there we go. We got this massive Cubs image. All right. Now, this is looking very sloppy right here. All these files are messing me up, right? Like which one's index? Like we have quite a few of them. And really, you only want one index.html file in your root directory. So what I'm going to do is make a new file, or a new folder, called pages. This is common practice. So pages, I will put my history.html, my players, and my teams. Okay? Notice that index.html is outside of that. It's in the root directory. So now what will happen is all of these will break. I can't go to teams, I can't go to history, I can't go anywhere. Now that's because there is no teams.html in the same folder as index.html. So what do I have to do with this URL? Exactly, add pages/teams to all of them? Exactly, so pages/everything. If you hold down the Command key on a Mac and Control key on Windows, you can click multiple places and type all at the same time. Another trick. Cool. So refresh it, and now when you click on players, hey, you got the players page, you got the history page with the broken link, and then teams. Now that history page has a broken link. Let's see what that's about. So I'm going to go into my pages, go into history, and hey, we have that same banner, but it's broken. Why is that? There's no img folder inside of the pages folder, right? Because now we are in history.html. We are right here. How do we say go back one directory and go into the img folder? Anyone know? .. The ... will kick your butt so much more than you think. What does it mean? It just means go back one directory. That's it. So if you're, right now, history.html is in what directory? Pages, right? And in pages, there is no img folder. If you did this, new folder, img, and then in there you had like a new file, banner. Whoa, why is that banner.html? .jpeg. So this is the banner.jpg it's looking for, but the images folder is not inside of the pages folder. So I'm going to delete that. Okay. So you need the ... to go out of pages. And when you go out of pages, what folder will you be in? You'll be in the MLB, the root folder. You'll jump out, get into here, and then you want to go into img, and then into banner.jpg. So now we refresh it. Hey, we get our image, and we are in history.html. If you want to go to teams.html. You can just play around with the URL. See, we're in our pages folder. We could erase all of that and go to index.html. Hey, we're on the index. You want to check out what's in our img folder? Hey, there it is. img/banner.jpg. Hey, there it is. So it's really just traversing our file structure. And that's exactly what you do when, let's say, we're on the history page and we want to have a link to go home, right? Like, let's have an anchor with a link to home somehow that says home. Any guesses? Anyone want to take a stab at what my URL will be to link to index.html? What was that? What file directory? Just index.html. From history.html, which is right here, Yeah, the dot//. The dot//, all that does is say jump out, jump back one directory. And a parent can have multiple children, but a children can only have one parent. You guys got that? So MLB is the parent with these 3 children, and they could only have one parent. This IMG folder is the one parent with these 2 children. The pages is the parent with these 3 children, right? So if you do the dot//, you always go back to the parent. Yeah, exactly. Not to the root. If I had another thing in here, a new folder called cubs, and then I had a new file, players, oops, what is that, players.txt, players.html. Then in here to go home, any guesses on what the link would be? To go to this index.html. From the players.html right here inside of cubs. Clever, almost. If dot// is to go back one directory, how do you go back 2?
2 slashes.
Another dot//. Yeah, you guys are thinking logically. At least you're thinking. That's awesome. That's exactly the problems that these people faced when they were developing this. They're like, oh man, now we're inside this file. Like, how do we say go back 2? Like, what makes the most sense? And they're like, okay, just like tack on a bunch of dot//. Right? That's the solution they came up with. Everything that you guys were saying makes sense. You could say like, oh, that means go back 1, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 folders. Like, that very well could have been the case, but they decided, no, it's dot//, and so on and so forth.
Easier to count those slashes than it is to count the dots.
Yeah, see, that's probably what they thought. So now we're kind of thinking more like the developers. Yeah. A great way to trash your computer is to go to your C drive and then copy everything in your C drive and put it in dot//. Because there's nothing before it and your computer doesn't know what to do and it just crashes. It's programming human. We'll get into that later. I'll show you how to do it. Just kidding. But we're going to go into the terminal later on. So this is more of an appetizer. So who's afraid of this thing? This big black screen with like white or green text called the terminal or command prompt. I was terrified of it when I first saw it. I thought like, hey, I'm gonna like break my machine, like typing some command. It's gonna say like, oh, there's some error, like clearing your entire system, like deleting. No, but in the terminal, you could like move everything to dot//, and then it would just take everything in the current directory and move it back 1, and it'll explode. Oh, good times. Yeah. So, but we're going to be getting into the terminal later on. It's really fun stuff, but that's for later. Yeah. So now we're in this cubs folder and the players.html, and then dot// will take it out of the cubs folder and into pages, and then the second dot// will take it out of the pages and into MLB. And that's where we see index.html. Awesome. So dot//, very handy. And that's how you link anything. If you have a CSS file, and you want to go back a directory, dot//, an image, dot//, a link to anything. You link everything the exact same way using this structure. Yeah, I'm going to get into that right now. Okay, so now that we learned a bit about traversing and connecting pages, and hopefully that answers your question a bit, awesome. So now let's get into CSS and making this stuff pretty. Like this is, what is that? I don't even want to look at that anymore. All right, so get rid of that, and we'll make it something nice. So refresh, there we go. So where are buttons? There they are. Let's get rid of that image for now. Yeah, I guess history could be like that. All right. We'll get into, we'll do CSS. So CSS stands for, yeah, cascading style sheets. The cascading part, I'll show you in a bit. They're style sheets. They're ways to style your code. So the first thing that I always do is I want this to be a different font. Anyone have a favorite font? Helvetica. First one I heard. All right, that's what we're going to use. So we're going to change everything to Helvetica. Now, again, the way CSS works is you target something, you say what property you want to change, and then the value you want to change it to. So the target is a CSS selector. A CSS selector can be tags, IDs, classes, anything, almost anything. So the target, in this case, anyone want to take a stab at what I want to target if I want to change everything? What would my tag be to target? What is all of this stuff in? The body, exactly. So the body is my target. So let's target the body, and then everything else is just syntax, meaning these developers were faced with this issue like, hey, this looks terrible. How do we make this pretty? Like, okay, how about we define a few things? We'll target, or we'll define what we want to change, and then the property we want to change, and then what we want to change it to. Okay, that makes sense. So now, how do we do that in code? Like, do we say, like, body, like with an arrow, like font change to like Helvetica? Like, do we want it like that, or body change the font to Helvetica, right? Like, now it's just syntax. And the way to properly do it is body with the open and close curly braces, and then you do font family, and Helvetica, and a semicolon. Why the semicolon? Because you could add more things. Like you could change the background color to light goldenrod yellow. Favorite color. Oops. There we go. So I'm targeting the body. The property I want to change is the font family to Helvetica, and the background color to light goldenrod yellow. So refresh it. Hey, we have light goldenrod yellow, and it's now Helvetica. So when the developers were faced with trying to figure out how CSS should look, like my two options, maybe like, how do you add more? Like, do you add another arrow for like background color and so on? So they ended up saying that this makes a lot of sense, so this is the way it's going to be. Again, the target, what you want to change and what you want to change it to. So that's it. Now, what else do we want to change? Let's say we want to center a bunch of things. Maybe center everything. Well, if in the body, we want to do text align center. Hey, everything's aligned in the center. How awesome. Just like that. And the image goes along with it because the image is an inline element. All right. What else should we do? Let's target this World Series text. So what is that? It's an H3. So now I'm going to target H3, and now it's all just syntax. And I want to change the font color. So I'll do font color red. What? Why isn't the font color changing? Well, that's because it's not font color, it's just color. Who decided that? I don't know, but I don't like them. I used to run into that all the time. So it's not font color, it's not text color, it's just color. So there, now we have red. And if we want to change that to a different font family, let's do fantasy. And hey, it's in a new font. So this really is where the cascading part comes in. So what cascades? The CSS rules, right? If I didn't have any CSS, then right now the rule is Times New Roman. Is it? Let me check it out. If you right-click it, anything, and hit inspect, then it'll bring up the inspector in Google Chrome. I highly recommend using Google Chrome. And then you could see, is it this way? Font size. Where's my font? What font is it? Let's do this. I'm going to bring all of this back, save it, refresh, and now, there we go. So the body, we changed the font family to Helvetica. If we want, we could change it right here to Arial. Whatever you change it to in here, Times New Roman, that's what it will be. Now, I'm not changing the code down here. For instance, if I go here, it's still Helvetica. You'd have to copy paste it over, but it's a great little sandbox. So let's say I want to change the background color. Like say I like, let's see, that's a cool color. So I like that. What I can do is copy this hex code, and then instead of light golden rod yellow, just use a hex code instead. So that way, if I refresh it, then that's what we get. If you right-click anywhere on the screen and click Inspect in Google Chrome, you have to be in Chrome or Chrome Canary. Cool. So there you go. You get you could click on different things. So say I want to target this div right here, and as I'm going through the code, you could see things highlighting up above. So you could see like the background color and like how big things are. So the H1 is only that big, but the div containing it is that big, and so on. So let's say I wanted to make this div a different color, then I can I do it in here? Background color, Alice Blue. There we go. So I made that div with the background color of Alice Blue, which I think looks pretty cool. So now that I know that, I'm going to go into my CSS and change that. So we have the body, the H3. Any div will now have a background color of Alice Blue. And there you go. Questions so far? Yeah. Okay. Right. That's when this comes into play. Here, maybe I'll do this. Target with a curly brace, property, :value. There we go. That's the syntax. So, yeah, the order, exactly. So our target is body, the property is font family, and the value is Helvetica. And then let's say property value, and so on. So you could have as many properties as you want. In reality, you can write it all on one line. Could have done this, which is terrible for us, but the computer loves it. It doesn't have to skip so many lines. It reads this all super quickly. It says, hey, if there's a semicolon, then we're done with this command, so we're going to start a new one. All right, let's do all that again. So here we have, maybe we should start another page. Yeah, why not? We'll do another one. All right, so that was round one. We have many more to go. So let's target maybe teams. We'll mess with the teams page. So I'm going to open that page up. And again, it's in my pages folder. I'll go Cubs. And this will maybe display a little info about each team. So we'll be able to use our Cubs.jpg and 6-3. We'll do this. We'll do their official logos. Ooh, come back. So these. Oh no. Okay. So these are block elements. Address, block quote. Don't ever use center. That's been deprecated. Anything in the gray, I think, has been deprecated. Is this HTML4? Oops. HTML. Here we go. Oh. So all of these are block elements. So paragraph tags. Who can explain to me what block elements are? Or what's the difference between block and inline? Blocks are like Legos. They stack, right? If I have one div and then right after it I have another div, then it'll be on the next line. And if I add a paragraph after that, it'll be on the next line. Whereas inline elements, they're more like the Microsoft Word, right? You insert a button and then another button and another button. They don't stack because they're not block elements. They just go inline. Yeah. Yeah, because blocks have a built-in break after them. Yeah. Exactly. Awesome. And in reality, you really shouldn't have free-floating text like when I did, These should really be in their own divs. So for the most part, you really shouldn't use the break tags. When you're using them, just think, oh, maybe I should have a wrapper. Like I should have something around whatever I'm putting the break tag on. For instance, If I remove that break tag and simply surround the buttons in a, let's say, div, right? Then, because divs have built-in line breaks after them, there we go, then the image will be on the next line. So there we go. We have the buttons and then the image on the next line. And you see, because of our CSS, here, anything that is a div, anything at all, will have a background color of Alice Blue. So here, go through the code. Oh, we see this div, so Major League Baseball and World Series. Okay, awesome. And then, oh, hey, look, another div. Teams, history. So this would be like the button div sort of thing. And then after that, we just have the image. Yes. You are my favorite person in the world right now. That's exactly what the developers were thinking of. We're like creating CSS right now. It's awesome. So how would you solve it? Like, would you say div 1 and div 1, and then div 2 and div 2? And then you target div 2? Background color Alice Blue? Oh, not quite. Oh, so you guys are going in the right way. So there has to be some attribute, right, that we could add to it. We just tack on, saying like div with something of like header, or div like button, like this is the buttons div, right? We have teams, we have history, and that. So what we can do is we could give it an ID. So I'm giving this this div an ID of buttons. Now, it's still a div, so it's still going to get the background color of Alice Blue. So check this out, refresh it. It still has Alice Blue, but let's say I only want the header, this div with an ID of header. Why not? What if I only want that to have the background color of Alice Blue? Can I just target the idea of header? Absolutely. So how would you do this? Would you just put like header? Like that wouldn't work, because that means it's a tag. That there's a header tag, for instance, header, like that. Like then this would get targeted. That works, but how do you target the ID attribute? Yeah, you put a hashtag in front. So hashtag header. And the hashtag means ID of header. Change the background color to Alice Blue. Cool. And there we go. Now that CSS property, what was I gonna say? It only pertains to anything with an ID of header. That's what this is saying. This is saying anything that's an H3 tag. So if I have like 10 H3 tags, then they're all going to have a color red and a font family of fantasy. This is saying anything with an ID of header, give it a background color of Alice Blue. Okay? So ID of header. So let me write that. Hashtag pound signs denote IDs. Pretty cool, right? So, any questions? Does that answer your question of how to like separate things, target different things? Awesome. So, what if, yeah, no, go ahead. Great question. So Really the question here is, where do you put CSS, right? Does it really make sense to put CSS in an HTML file? Like, is that the best way to do it? What if I told you that there are 3 ways to add CSS to a page? There's inline, there's embedded, and there's external. So first, I'll show you embedded, which is what I've been doing. So I went into my head, which is where CSS should be. By convention, everyone puts it in the head. So I can embed it by using a style tag. And anything inside there is CSS. Anything at all. So I can't do like h1, hello, and h1, right? The syntax highlighting is completely off. It's freaking out. It doesn't know what to do because anything from here to here is CSS. For tags? For files, they should be lowercase. Like all of these file names are all lowercase, and then also the tags should be lowercase. Yeah, every tag, everything is case sensitive. Yeah, extremely. Yeah, good questions. So this, I could add more here. I could say like body, background, color red. Now here's a tricky question. On line 12, I changed the body's background color to red. And on line 34, I changed the body's background color to this like purplish. Any guess on what color will, the background will be? Purple or red? Right here? This is a hex value. There are different ways that you could insert a color. Let me bring up the color picker. I have you guys all install this. Boom, check that out. So cool. So you can choose different colors directly inside of Atom. You could even make it opaque. So if you want it a little bit see-through, you could do that. So you could either add it by the RGB. Come back. So the way I got there is by hitting Command-Shift-C on a Mac. I think it's Control-Shift-C on Windows. C for color, or color picker. Now, the colors could either be hex values, which is what these are, or hexadecimal values. They can be RGB values, so RGB, I can't zoom in or else it'll disappear. There we go. So RGB, the 210 is for red, the 213 is for green, and 250 is blue. So if it was RGB 000, then it would be black. Because black is the absence of color, right? And then white is the essence of color. And if I did 255 for all of them, any guesses?
It's the maximum.
No, if all of them are maxed out, then it's white. Every color mixed together is white. Yeah. Black is the absence of color. White is the essence of color, they say. So, and let's say I wanted only red. Well, then I could change the red to max, green to 0, and then blue to 0.
And you have to, it always has to be RGB. It just couldn't just be red by itself.
No, it's always RGB. Because or you could just type out red. And that'll work the same way. So, fresh. Exactly. Yeah, so you could just type out red, pink, whatever, any color.
Well, you have no variation in it when you put red in it. It would be completely red.
Exactly.
It'll be red to its max.
I think so. I don't know how it's like defined, but yeah. Yeah, it'll be like I'm pretty sure it's red to the max. So we have RGB, we have hex, which works essentially the same way. The first 2 digits are for red, the next 2 are for green, the last 2 are for blue. and F is max. So if I did this, any guesses? Hey, blue. R0, G0 for green, and max is blue. What else do we have? We have HSL for hue, saturation, and light? L? I don't know. And then HSV for whatever, and then vector. Like, there are multiple ways that you can define color. So let's check that out. Maybe this doesn't work. I have no idea what that is. But let's go back to what it was. Okay, back, oops, color, right? So we had it as, or we'll change it to blue. So the question is, riddle me this. On line 12, I'm changing the background color to blue of the body, and then on line 34, I'm changing the background color to that nice purple. Any guesses for what the color will be? Red? And why? Like, why red? Top? Okay, yeah, that's fair, right? So the developers could have said that. They could have been like, oh, whatever's at the top, right? My question is, how does programming work? Programming works top to bottom, left to right, the exact same way we read, right? So the browser is reading our code the exact same way. It's starting from line 1. It's saying, okay, hey, our doc type is HTML. Okay, awesome. Like HTML mode activated. Line 2, okay, this is where the HTML starts. Like, you said there's going to be HTML. Now this is where it is. Okay, cool. Here's the head. Oh, I know what to do with that, and so on and so forth. So it goes from top to bottom. So here on line 12, it's saying like, hey, the background color of the body should be blue. Set. Then it goes to line 14, says nothing there. Hey, we're done with some CSS. Line 16, whatever. Oh, hey, look, some more CSS is coming our way. Get ready. Like, activate CSS mode. Oh, hey, it's a comment. Don't really care about that. Oh, hey, look, body, font family Helvetica, background color to purple. Okay, change the background color to purple. And it goes on down like that. So if I refresh it, then we get the background color of purple because of the way that programming works. It just works top to bottom. Hence the term cascading, right? All of these different things cascade down the list until you get to the end, and then that's what gets output on the screen. So check this out. So I'm going to open up my inspector. I have no idea what I just did. Oh, cool. Command Option I. Command Option J. Yeah, Command Option J opens up the console. And go to Elements. Hold on, Command Option I. Yeah. You can either do that and go to Elements, or you could just right-click anywhere, Inspect. So you want to make sure you're on the Elements tab. You also have the console here, which is JavaScript. Alert. Hi. Oops. And you get hi. And then you have your sources, so all the different files that we have. So hey, look, banner. Don't know why that's it. Then the network tab. So we're going to be playing around with this later when we make requests to databases. Then timeline of random stuff, profiles. Like, there's just so much down here. Don't worry about breaking it. You can't mess it up. This is a neat thing. If you want to change the device you're looking at, then hey, check that out. Let's see what this looks like on a. There's no Galaxy Note or Samsung Note 7. So, do you guys see that? Someone in Japan was that for Halloween. Yeah. So this is what our website would look like on a Nexus 6P, and then iPhone 6 Plus. Guess they have the same resolution, 6, and so on. So play around with this. It's kind of fun, but we'll get into it together. So let's get rid of that. And here we're in the Elements tab. And here I have the body selected. And this is where stuff gets magical. What? What? Why'd you cross that out? Oh, because I see in HTML, or index.html line 11, we set the background color to blue. Here we go. Line 11, the body's background color is blue. And then it overrode it at index.html line 32. So what would happen if I turn this off? Ah, then you would see the blue. I get it, right? Cascading. All these different properties and values cascade down. Very cool stuff. If I turn off font family, then it would cascade down to Times New Roman or whatever the default font is. Oh no, I broke my code. No, just refresh it and right back to normal. Gets really fun. All right, anything else? Any other questions? Right, where do we put CSS? That was the question. I said there are 3 ways to do it. One, I'm just going to write a little note. Will get overwritten. Just so you kind of see later on if you look at this. So, embed CSS. There we go. So this is how you embed CSS into HTML with these style tags. Right, so I'm in HTML, I'm in the head, all I do is make these style tags open and close, and then anything inside there is CSS. Okay, that's embedding. Next, we have inline CSS. What does that mean? Well, what if I want to change this v tag? Let me make a comment. Inline CSS. So inline CSS. Ooh, why don't I show you? So you could give anything an ID. An ID is a global attribute, right? So I could give like this h3 an ID of like whatever I want, right? You could tack on an ID to anything, the body. Give the body an ID of body, and then you target anything with the ID of body, right? You could do that. That works. IDs are not the only global attributes. There are like 6. Another global attribute is the style attribute. So it works in this way that you write style equals and then open and close quotation marks. Always, that's how it's always going to be. Every attribute has to work this way, that you say the attribute equal sign, open and close double quotation marks. Again, if you have single quotation marks, then it'll yell at you saying it must be in double quotes, but that's just the linter. So what do you put in there? Well, all you put in there is CSS. So what do we want to change in this? Someone give me something to change the Welcome to World Series. What do we want to change? Maybe the font size and the for whatever reason, let's put a border around it. How about that? So we'll make it we'll definitely do a border. Why don't we start with the border? So how do you put a border around that? Well, it's just, border might be a little confusing right now in this. So I'm just going to change the font color for now. So, or maybe italics? Hold on, let me find some fun stuff. Border, background, the gradient. Like the text gradient or the background gradient? Yeah, but do you want the text to have a gradient? Like go from black to like the whole page? Yeah, we'll get to gradient. We'll just change the color, all right? So style, we target the color of it, and then it's really just this. So color, colon, and then the value, and then the semicolon. So why don't I take that as is and do that. So we're looking at welcome to the World Series. Refresh. Hey, we got welcome to the World Series in red. Awesome. What if we want to add more? Well, you just tack stuff on. Like we can say border 2 pixels solid. Semicolon. Refresh. Hey, we got a 2 pixel solid red border. Say you want a black border, 2 pixels solid black. And then we got a black border. So it's really just a matter of tacking on all these different attributes. This is really annoying and obnoxious. This used to be really frowned upon until React came into the picture, and they're like, just do it. But they have a much better way of doing it than this. Like, this is sloppy and nasty, like color, colon, red, and then like a semicolon. It doesn't, every time I hit the wrong button. It's really sloppy. You can't really see what the heck is going on, like especially when you have a little more like font size, 30 pixels. Boom. So it gets really sloppy, but that's inline CSS. So everything is in line with the element. I have a question. What if I target a, where is it? Here. What if I target every p tag and change the color to yellow? Will this welcome to the World Series be yellow or red? Just guesses. Yellow. So in my embedded CSS, I changed every p tag's color to yellow. And then later on, here we go, I changed the p tag's style color to red. It's going to be yellow. So why do you think it's yellow?
Because of this cascading is reading the first one.
Yeah, it's cascading, but with CSS, it's always the last thing. Yeah. So first it'll set it to yellow, and then it'll say, hey, you set it to red here later on. So it's going to be red. Right? So if I refresh it, we don't get yellow. We change this to purple, and we get purple, right? So inline, really you can never change inline styling. Like let's say I wanted to, in CSS somehow target this p tag, like even with an ID. Wait a minute. Side note, let's say, let's make this fun. Let's make this really fun. Okay. So this div has an ID of header. And right here we're changing the header's background color to Alice blue, right? Here, let me move this down so it's a little bit closer. There we go. So this is changing this background color, right? So if I change that to green, then that whole header area is green. Thought experiment. What if later on I changed every div, if I changed the background color to black? Option 1, the header will be Alice blue. Option 2, the header will be black because of this div. That's a really good guess. Anyone else? Why? What if I told you it's in order if the it's not only in order of top to bottom, but it's also in order of specificity. So what is more specific? Every single div or one ID? One ID. That's what I want you guys to know. And that's why I had you guys do that thought experiment. Like, why? Like, why is it going to be Alice blue and not black? I'm going to change this just to show you that it's like, that it changes. So the ID of header is going to be green. And then this is going to change every other div's background color to black. And there we go, pink. So specificity wins. What's more specific, IDs or inline styling? Well, let's find out. Let's set the style background color to, give me a color. Orange. I probably have never used orange in my life. Never think about that. Okay, so thought experiment. What's more specific, an ID or an inline style? Any guesses? Like, anyone want to, like, IDs? Inline styles? I'm gonna go with inline style because I've always heard, I've personally never done this exact experiment, but I've always heard that nothing can trump an inline style. So that's what I'm gonna go with. So refresh it, and it's orange. So even though IDs are very specific, you really should only ever have one unique ID per page. For example, what if I gave this H3 an ID of header? The ID value header must be unique. You can only have one unique ID per page. Very, very important. That is the very essence of an ID, right? Say your driver's license ID, right? That is unique. You only have one in the state of California or wherever your driver's license is from. It's unique. So that's what IDs are. Inline styles can never be changed. That's why you should not use them. Because if you use inline styles and some other developer tries to change something on the screen, they're not going to get very far because they can't change anything. So inline styles, for the most part, should not be used until we get to React. So just know that they can never be changed. Very important. Inline styles are fine, just with React. Awesome. And let's change that as blue, and then we'll change that to orange, just because I like the Alice blue. All right. Awesome. Very cool. Now, here's the question. What if I wanted to change multiple things? Like, I want to make this button bigger and that button bigger. Well, let's say, input type of button, anchor tag. Yeah, so right now, yeah, what if I wanted to change all of these buttons to be bigger? Like, how could I do that? I can't use IDs because you can only have one unique ID. So I can't give this like an ID of BTN for like the button. Copy that and then put that, I guess, right here. Like, I can't do that because IDs have to be unique. So this is, again, a problem that the developers found, and they said, how do we fix this? Well, why don't we make something that, like, an attribute, another global attribute but you could have more of. Maybe something like a class. Oh, okay. So I dig it. I dig it. You can have classes with the same values. So this button has a class of btn, and this input with the type of button has a class of btn. So now, if I just target anything with the class of btn, I could change the height, width, background color, like whatever I want. Awesome, right? So how do we denote a class? Anyone know? So a # denotes an ID. What do high school classes have? They have periods, right? Periods 1 through 6. So period, btn, and that's how you target classes. So periods denote classes. All right, awesome. So what do we want to do? Let's first change the height to 100 pixels. We'll go crazy with it. So let's see what we're working with. Refresh, and we get that height of 100 pixels, and that's because the input is a little funky. Let me look this up real quick. So CSS, change input button height. Let's see what we can do. How to edit the size of a submit button. That'll work the same way. Do you guys want to take a break?